Yes, in this video, we'll discuss about working of break statement and continuous statement. So first, consider a sample loop and display list of values by iterating using that loop. So let us consider the for loop for I in range of, okay. So 1 comma 10. I want to display these numbers one by one, okay. So let's run this code and see the result. You can see the range is from 1 comma 10. So it will start displaying numbers starting from 1 up to 10 minus 1, which is 9. So this is the corresponding output. Now, if I start writing the break statement, okay. So let us suppose here I am writing the break statement. If I value is equal to 5, in that case I'm going to break this particular loop. Okay, now let's run this code and see the result. In this case you will see the result as 1 2 3 4. Why? Because whenever I value becomes 5, its corresponding condition is true, and obviously the statement, that is break statement, will be executed. It means control will be transferred outside the for loop. Okay. Now let us consider an example for continuous statement. Let us suppose I am replacing this break statement with continuous statement, and let's run this code and see the result. So the moment I value is matching with 5, it executes continuous statement, which means it will skip the current iteration and proceed to the next iteration. So that is why you are not able to see value of 5 in the list of values. Why? Because for all the other values, this condition is going to be false. So it will print value directly. But for I equal to 5, this condition becomes true. An associated continuous statement will be executed, which will skip the current iteration and proceed to the next iteration. Okay. So that's why you are not able to see I value as 5 in the output. Clear? Like this. So now we'll discuss about function. Okay. What is meant by function? Okay. Function is nothing but a block of statements which are used to perform a particular task. Okay. So it performs a task. So we can consider function itself as a black box which takes the input and performs a task and gives the results. Okay. So in this function calling, or you can see here, whenever we write a function, we have to call the function. Okay. So consider like this. So let us suppose this is function 1 and this is function 2. Now function 1 is calling function 2. How this can happen is that simply write function 2, fun2 of, and just write the parameters here. Whatever parameters that you want to pass from function 1 to function 2, you can pass here. Let us suppose a comma b are the parameters. Okay. So these are the parameters here. And there are formal parameters in order to catch these actual parameters. A and b are said to be actual parameters here, and x and y are formal parameters. Now this value of a will be copied into x and value of b will be copied into y. Okay. So the moment function 2 is called, its corresponding parameters are copied into formal parameters that are mentioned in function 2. Okay, this is how we can carry the data from one function to another function. So now after execution of this particular function, you can either return a value back to the calling function, or you can directly display the data here in this function 2 itself. Okay, so now let's see the syntax of implementing a function. In any function implementation, it has two parts. Okay, two parts. One is function header, the other one is function body. Okay, first we have to mention function header, and next function body representation. Clear? So let me show you the syntax for this representation. In order to define the header, okay, in Python we can define like this. Define, write on the name of the function here like this, function name, and then specify the parameters of the function like variable 1, variable 2, and so on, like this. So here we can write statement block or block of statements which belong to this particular function, and then a return statement. So when we write the return statement, we can specify the expression, okay, that gets evaluated, and the value will be returned back to the calling function. Okay, so if you observe this, this is nothing but function header, this part. Okay, next, what is the body of the function? This part is clearly specifying the body of the function. Okay, and this is the return statement which is going to return value back to the calling function. So let's consider an example to understand this function calling in much better way. Okay, so let us suppose I want to display hello world 4 times. Okay, so in this case I will define a function without any parameters, function. Okay, so now write for loop which can iterate for 4 times for I in range of 4. It means the statement that I'm going to write here is going to execute for 4 times. So inside this block we are using print statement to display hello world. Okay, so you can see this is the function implementation. Function implementation. In this function implementation, first line is clearly specifying function header. This is specifying function header. Okay, and these two lines are basically representing function body. Now let's call this particular function. Okay, so this is said to be function call. Function call. So the moment we call this function, immediately this function gets activated and the block of statements inside the function will be executed. So this for loop is going to iterate for 4 times, and you can see 4 times hello world will be displayed. So in the output screen, clearly you will observe hello world getting displayed for 4 times like this. Hello world, hello world, hello world like this. Okay, this is a corresponding output for this function calling. Okay, now we'll consider a program containing a function which performs sum of two given numbers. Okay, so for this purpose I will define a new function. Okay, consider name of the function as total, and it is taking two parameters a comma b. Okay, so now result equal to a plus b, adding both these parameters a b, and finally we are going to display the result here. So that is print sum of, we are adding a value as well as b value, right? And b, and we can display the result. Okay, so this is the entire function to perform addition of two numbers. So now let's take two numbers as input, which is outside the function. Take a is equal to, so input those particular first number, that is enter the first number here. Okay, now similarly prompt the user to enter the second number as well. Okay, enter the second number. Okay, so now let's call this particular function. So function calling can be done like this: total of, and pass these two parameters a comma b. A comma b are the two parameters which we can pass here. Okay, so what is the corresponding output displayed here? And you can see the moment you call this function, value of a will be copied into variable a here, and value of b will be copied into variable b. Okay, let us suppose the prompting of the message displayed will be like this: enter first number. For example, user has entered 10. Now it is asking enter the second number. Let us suppose user has entered value as 15. Now you can see value of a becomes 10 and value of b becomes 15. So both these values are copied into variable a and b respectively, and now you can see result equal to a plus b. Here result will be computed as a plus b. A value is 10 and b value is 15. 10 plus 15 value will become 25. And finally we are displaying that result, which is sum of a and b. Value of a is 10 and b value is 15, is equal to 25. So this will be displayed when you execute this particular code. Okay, like this. Hello everyone. In this video, I'll explain how to define a function and call this particular function in Python. So let me consider concept of cubing a number. Okay, cube value should be returned. of a given number has to be returned. Okay. So for that purpose, I'm going to define a function. Let's suppose the function is cube. And this cube function is taking x as the parameter, and it is going to return cube value. How you can get cube value? X into x into x. This is going to return a cube value. So this is how we can write a function. def is basically defining a function. Cube is representing the name of the function. X is representing the parameter of the function. And this is a return statement which is returning a value back to the calling function. Okay. So now in order to call this particular function, we will consider num is equal to 10. Okay. So now I'll pass this num value as an argument to the cube function. Okay. So result equal to cube of num. So you can see num value 10 is passed as parameter to the cube function, and cube function will be called, and this is going to return 10 into 10 into 10, which is nothing but 1000. So that will be stored in result. Now you can display that particular result. Yes or no? So we can write like this: cube of that particular number equal to result, like this. So let's execute and see this particular program. You can see cube of 10 is equal to 1000. So similarly, if you want to execute for some more inputs, here you can modify the number like 6 and execute here. You can see cube of 6 is equal to 216. Okay. Similarly, if you want to modify this to 20 and execute this, you can see cube of 20 is 8000, like this. Now similarly, if you want, you can implement another function as well, which is a square function. So how I can define this square function is define similarly square of x. Here I'll return simply x into x. Okay, like this. So now we need to call this square, right? Yes, result I'll consider. This time I'm calling the square function with the parameter num. Okay. So similar to this print statement, I'm going to write one more print statement where I can get the result, which is after performing the square of the given number. Here I'll write square of the number. Okay. You can see the execution of this particular code. Square of 20 is 400. Cube of 20 is 8000. Like this, we can write a function. Okay. So let's switch to another program in order to find the maximum value among two given numbers. Okay. So this particular program is to find maximum among two given numbers. Okay. For this purpose, I'm going to write a function called findMax. FindMax is the name of the function, which takes parameters as x comma y. Okay. Since in Python we don't need to define any data type, we can simply write x comma y here. That is the advantage of Python programming. Okay. So now let me write this if statement. If x greater than y colon, immediately we can return x back to the calling function. Okay. Suppose in the else case, whenever x value is greater than y is false, immediately we can return y. Okay, like this. So now we need to make use of variables. Let us suppose a. First read the value, enter first value, like this. Similarly, I'll consider another variable which is b, and here I'll ask for second value. Now we are going to call this findMax function in order to display the result. Okay. So print maximum value is equal to, here I'll call this findMax function with two inputs, a comma b, like this. So let's execute this particular code. Now it is prompting us to enter the first value. Let us suppose first value entered is 55 and second value entered is 33. You can see maximum value is 55. Yes or no? Like this. Similarly, you can easily implement findMin. Yes or no? So you just need to copy paste the same code, but I'll modify this as findMin. Okay. So whenever x is less than y, you return x value. Otherwise, return y value. So this is simple implementation of findMin. Now, in order to find the minimum value among these two numbers, here, just copy paste and modify this as minimum value equal to. This time you have to call the findMin function. Okay. Let's execute this code now. So it's prompting us to enter the first value. First value, let us suppose 88, and second value entered is 66. So maximum value displayed is 88 and minimum value displayed is 66, like this. Well, you need to find out the output produced by this code. Okay. So this is a concept of using a loop inside a function. If you observe here, the code execution starts from this point where function fun is called in Python. So if you look at this function fun definition here, it contains a for loop which is iterating from 1 to 10. Okay. Because this is going to show you the starting value and this is ending value plus 1, right? So this value must be less than 11. Okay, the number of iterations that it is going to take is starting from 1 and so on up to less than 11. It means the number of iterations are 1, 2, 3 and so on up to 10 iterations. It is going to execute this particular print statement, and in this print statement hello world is written. So how many times hello world will be printed here? Total of 10 times hello world will be printed. So you can expect the output here as hello world will be displayed, and like this, how many times? A total of 10 times hello world will be displayed. Okay, like this. Next, we need to find out output for this code. This time if you observe, a for loop is written and the loop variable is iterating from 1 to 10. Okay, so in fact here it is 11, which means less than 11. So starting value is 1 and up to 10 it is going to iterate, and every time it is calling the function called fun. So the function fun will be executed for how many times? 10 times. So every time the function fun is called, it is going to display the output as hello world. Okay, so first time when it is calling function fun, this is the output, and second time the same output, and so on like this. How many times hello world will be printed? Total of 10 times. So even though the output is same for both the previous code and this one, so the fundamental difference is in the previous case, function is called only one time and the loop is written inside the function so that the hello world is printed 10 times. But if you observe this code, this function fun is called 10 times, and every time when a function fun is called, it is printing hello world. So that is a basic difference between previous code and this one. So next one is first n value is going to be entered here. Let us suppose n is equal to 5. N is equal to 5. Enter n value. So 5 is entered. Now function fun is called by passing n value. So what is n value here? 5, right? So 5 will be copied into this particular variable. Okay. So value of I will become 5. And if you observe the range, j is a loop variable that is iterating from 1 to 5. Hence 5 plus 1 here. So every time j value is getting displayed, after displaying j value, again tab space is used to separate the next value. So finally the output that is going to be displayed here will be j value, okay, is initially 1 and later 2. In the next iteration it will be 3, and in the next iteration 4, and finally it will be 5. Okay, because value of 5 is getting passed here, and as n is equal to 5 here. Okay, just like this. So next one is finding sum of two given numbers with the help of a function. So first we have defined a function name called add, and this function add has got two parameters, a and b. Okay, so and this add function is going to perform summation of those two parameters a and b in a variable called c, and finally the result which is stored in c is returned back to the calling function. Okay, so here simply we are calling this add function by passing values x and y. What is x and what is y? Value of x is taken by first prompting the user to enter first value. Okay, you can see in the output screen, this is going to prompt you enter first value. Okay, suppose the value entered is 10, then immediately another statement will be displayed, that is enter second value. Now if you enter the second value like 20, in that case immediately result after addition will be displayed by calling a function called add and passing x and y as parameters. So you can see the value of x will be copied into variable a and value of y will be copied into variable b here. So currently value of a is 10 and value of b will be how much? 20. Now c is equal to a plus b, which is 10 plus 20, value will become 30 and value of c will be returned back to the calling function. So you can see finally the result that is going to be displayed is result after addition. Result after addition is 30, isn't it? Like this. So next one is finding the maximum among two given numbers with the help of a function. Okay, so let's see how this function calling is done here. Okay, the execution starts from here. X is equal to int of input of enter first value. So we are prompted to enter the first value in this case. So let us suppose when we enter the first value, the value entered is 25. Immediately variable x will be holding value of 25. Next, the next statement that is going to be displayed is enter second value. This is enter second value. Okay. Suppose the second value entered is 37. Immediately value of y will become 37. Okay. Next, the print statement largest value will be displayed. And what value will be displayed here? It is calling a function called maximum function by passing x and y as parameters. So immediately value of x will be copied into variable called a and value of y will be copied into variable called b. So in this case, variable a will be holding a value of 25, variable b will be holding a value of 37. Now if a greater than b, you can see 25 greater than 37, condition becomes false. Associated statement will not be executed and it will go to the else block and it is going to return value of b back to the calling function. What is value of b? 37. So 37 will be returned back here and finally the value of 37 will be displayed. So this is how we can write a function called maximum and compute maximum value and return that maximum value back to the calling function. Okay, or simply in the main program, right? Next one is finding the factorial of a given number using function calling. Okay, so this is the entire function definition for finding the factorial of a given number. Okay, so first value of n is taken as input. Now in the output screen it is going to prompt you to enter any value. Enter any value. For example, the value entered is 3. Then immediately n value will become 3. Now it is going to print result equal to by calling factorial of n function. So immediately this value of n will be copied into this variable n. So here also n value will become 3. Now fact is equal to 1 and I is a variable that is going to range from 1 to n. Okay, so here fact equal to fact into I, which means you can see fact is equal to fact into I. Current value of fact is 1. 1 into I value is 1. So in the next iteration I value will become 2. So fact is equal to fact into 2, that is 1 into 2 value will become 2. In the next iteration, fact equal to fact into I, fact equal to 1 into, okay, value of fact is currently 2, so 2 into 3 value will become 6. So this is going to iterate from 1 to n, right? Because always it is less than n plus 1, so which means n. Finally, the value of fact will be 6, and this is going to return fact value which is 6. So that is going to be displayed here, and here the result is equal to 6. 3 factorial is nothing but 3 into 2 into 1 value will be 6. In the same way, we got the result for factorial of a given number. Okay. So next one is we are going to test the number is in a given range or not. Okay. So if you observe the name of the function here, test range is the name of the function, and this is the entire code written for this particular function. Okay. So now we are going to test whether this number called 5 is in the range or not. So test range is the name of the function, and the moment you are passing 5 here, so the value of 5 will be copied into the variable called n. So right now the value of n will be 5, and n is tested whether it is in the range or not, 3 to 9. So since the value of n is in this range, okay, so it is from 3 up to 8. Okay, 5 is available in this range, right? Hence it is going to display you immediately 5 is in the range. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. For example, if you are giving n value as 15, in that case it is not going to fulfill this condition. In that case it is going to print the number is outside the given range. So next one is multiplying list of given numbers. So first consider this example. Here we have defined a function called multiply, which is taking parameter as list. Okay, so you need to pass list of numbers for this particular code. We are calling a name of the function called multiply, and these are all list of numbers that are passed. So numbers is clearly a list here containing values 8, 2, 3, -1 and 7. Okay, and initial value of total is equal to 1, and x is taking each value in the numbers list. So this numbers is nothing but a list containing elements of 8, 2, 3, -1, 7 here. So first element in the list will be multiplied with a variable called total. In that case, total is equal to total into, what is the first element here? 8. And what is total value initially? 1. So 1 into 8 value will be 8. After multiplying with the first element. Now, second element. Total is equal to total into 8. That is 8 is the total value currently into x. X value is 2. 8 into 2 value will be 16. In the next iteration, third element is multiplied. So total is equal to total into 16 into 3. Okay. So this value will become 48. In the next iteration, similarly, next element will be multiplied. That is total is equal to total into -1, which is 48 into -1 value will become -48. In the next iteration, total is equal to total into x. So -48 into 7. Okay. So what is the value that is obtained here? So 336 here. -336. So finally the output that is going to be returned back is total value, because all the elements are clearly multiplied one by one, and the total value will be returned here. So finally the output will be minus 336. Clear? Like this. Next one is recursion in Python. So what is meant by recursion? Recursion is nothing but function calling itself. Okay. Function calling itself is called recursion. Okay. So according to recursion, whenever we want to write a recursive function, okay, so we have to specify two things clearly. One is base condition, the other one is recursive call. Okay. So this base condition is also known as termination condition for the recursion. Termination condition for recursion. And this is a recursive call which will help the function to move to the next recursive call. Okay. So this is function calling recursively. Okay. So the best example to illustrate recursion is factorial. In order to find the factorial of any number, for example, consider 4 factorial. So the same 4 factorial can also be identified with the help of recursive function calling by writing 4 into 3 factorial. And now this 3 factorial can be computed as 3 into 2 factorial. And this 2 factorial can be computed as 2 into 1 factorial. Like this. And we can write a termination condition, which is a base condition. When n value is 1, it can return value of 1. So that this 2 into 1 gets computed, and it is going to return value of 2 back to the calling function. And next 3 into 2 will be computed, 6 will be returned back to the calling function, and then 4 into 6, value of 24 is returned to the 4 factorial. Okay. So now we will see complete program for factorial using this particular logic. Okay. First, we need to define a function which is a recursive function. Define factor of n. Okay. So in this factor of n function, we can write the base condition as if n double equal to 1 or n double equal to 0, we can return 1. In the else case, we are going to implement recursive case here. Okay. So the recursive case is calling the same fact function recursively. So this can be done by writing n into fact of n minus 1. Okay. So this is clearly fact function implementation. Okay. So now in order to call this particular function, we will consider a variable n. Now user is going to prompt the message, enter the value of n. Enter the value of n. So the moment you enter value of n, that is stored in variable n, now we'll call this function called fact by passing this n value. So this can be done like this. The factorial of n, okay. So here value of n is taken is fact of n, okay, like this. So let's see this function calling recursively. So let us suppose n value taken is 3. N value is 3. So immediately it is going to call fact of n. Fact of n means fact of 3 is called. So when fact of 3 is called, you can see here condition in the fact function 3 double equal to 1 or 3 double equal to 0. Condition will become false. So now it is going to execute the else block containing n into fact of n minus 1. That is 3 into fact of 3 minus 1, which is 2. Okay. So now this fact of 2 can be computed like this. That is 2 double equal to 1 or 2 double equal to 0. Condition will become false. So it will go for the else block and it is going to return n into fact of n minus 1. That is 2 into fact of 2 minus 1, which is 1. So now let's see execution for this fact of 1 recursive call. So for this n value will become 1. Okay. So n double equal to 1. You can see 1 double equal to 1. Condition becomes true. And this is going to return value of 1 back to the calling function. So once value of 1 is returned back to the calling function, this function call will also be returning 2 into fact of 1. Current fact of 1 is 1. So 2 into 1 is computed as 2. Now this value of 2 is returned back to the calling function. And you can see 3 into 2. Value is 6. So 6 will be returned back to the calling function. And fact of 3 value is 6. So in this program, you can see the output that is displayed here will be the factorial of n value is 3 is fact of n. Fact of n is basically returning value of 6. So factorial of 3 is 6. This will be returned here. Clear? Like this. Hello guys. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to convert the mathematical recurrence relation into a recursive function in Python programming. Okay. So for this purpose, I'm considering McCarthy's 91 function, okay, which can be implemented as a recursive function. And here is the recurrence relation for this McCarthy's 91 function. So you can clearly observe this, your passing value of n. If the value of n is greater than 100, it is going to return n minus 10. And if the value of n is less than or equal to 100, and you can see this is calling m of n plus 11. Okay. So let's start implementing this particular recurrence relation in the form of a recursive function in Python. Okay. So first, let me define a function, capital M, which is taking parameter as n. Now, first write down the condition. So whenever value of n is greater than 100, so in that case, it is going to return n minus 10. So if you go for the else case, this is going to return capital M of n plus 11. Okay, so this is the corresponding function. Yes or no? Now I'm going to call this particular function. Okay, so let me call this function inside a print statement. Okay, this is going to call function n by passing a parameter as let us suppose 102. Okay, so let's execute this particular code and see what is the corresponding result given by this McCarthy's 91 function. And this is clearly giving you the result as 92 if you are passing a parameter as 102. Okay, so let's check whether this result is correct or not according to this McCarthy's function. So the parameter given to the function is 102 and the value should be returned by this function is 92. Okay, and the same is obtained here. You can see we are calling function n with parameter as 102 and it is going to return the value or output as 92. Okay, so this is how we can easily convert any mathematical recurrence relation into McCarthy's 91 function, okay, which is a recursion based approach. Okay, so this is just an example for illustrating a recurrence relation to a recursive function. Okay. Hi. So in this video, we are going to discuss about nested functions. Okay. Clear? So what is meant by nested function? Okay. So nested function is basically the concept of writing function inside another function. Okay. It's the concept of writing function inside another function. Okay. So let me consider an example to demonstrate this nested function. Okay. So first I'll be defining a function. Okay. I'll consider this function as a outer function like this. Outer function. And this outer function contains a variable var is equal to 10. Okay. And within this outer function, I'm going to define another function called inner function. Okay. So in this inner function, I'm again declaring a variable with the same name, var is equal to 20. So in this inner function, I'm using a print statement in order to display the value of a variable saying inner variable value. Inner variable is equal to, and I'm printing the variable value. So this is just an inner function written inside another function called outer function. Okay. So here I'm basically calling this inner function. Okay. And after this inner function, I'm writing another print statement print of outer variable, outer variable. Okay, just like this. Now if you observe this clearly, this is the code for inner function. Okay. And this code is not going to be executed directly, okay, until unless you call this function. Okay, so then only this is going to display. Yes or no? And so I'm going to write the code in order to call this outer function, basically here. Outer function. Okay. And if you observe here clearly, this is considered as a definition of outer function. Okay. This is the definition of outer function. And clearly this is the function call, outer function call. Yes or no? I'm just denoting with the help of comment line here. This is outer function call. Okay. So whereas this is the corresponding inner function call. Inner function call. Okay. So if you consider the execution sequence of this particular code here, okay, first this outer function will be called. Okay, because up to here this is clearly function definition of the outer function, right? So the program execution starts with this outer function call. Okay, so once the outer function is called, immediately in the output what will be displayed? Okay, so control passes to this particular outer function execution, and according to the outer function the variable value is considered as 10. Okay, so after this after execution of this particular statement, this is again an inner function definition, so it will not enter directly into this inner function. Okay, so after this statement it will execute this particular statement. Okay, and this is an inner function call. Now executing this particular statement, okay, will move the control inside this inner function. And once the control moves inside the inner function, it is going to assign or create another variable with the same name called var and assign its value to 20. Okay. So now this will execute this print statement. Execution of this print statement will display inner variable equal to, so what is the value of the inner variable? Value of the inner variable is 20, right? So this is going to display inner variable value. So once this function call execution is done, then control is transferred to execute this print statement, okay, which is outer variable equal to, now this is going to display outer variable is equal to. So since this particular print statement belongs to this outer function, and this variable value will be obtained from the outer function only. So the value will become 10. Value will become 10. So this is the corresponding output for this program containing nested functions. Okay. So one is outer function, the other one is inner function. Clear? Like this. Hi, yeah. So in this video, I would like to discuss an example for nested functions. Okay. So let me define a sample function. Okay. So for example, a sample function like function cube. Okay. So given a value of x. Okay. Given a value of x, the function must be giving you the cube of x. Okay, for that purpose, I'm just taking a sample function here, cube. So x will be the parameter. Okay. So here I'm taking a sample variable. Okay, something like this. C is equal to x into, okay, x into x, like this. Now within this cube function, I'm trying to implement a new function called square function. Square is the name of the function. So I'll finish implementing this square function primarily. I'll consider variable s is equal to simply x into x. Okay. And here I'm going to print, okay, just yes. Okay. So once this function is finished, now currently I'm in function called cube function. Yes or no? So cube function contains square function. Okay. So if I close this square function, then you will understand that the line which I'm trying to write here belongs to cube function. Clear? So this cube function is trying to print value of c. Okay. And I'll come back here. So now I'll just consider variable n here. Okay. And I'm going to read value of n like this. Int of input of enter any value. Okay. Or simply enter a value. Just like this. So now we are going to pass value of n as an argument to the function. Okay. So for this purpose, you can see I'm just calling a cube function here. Okay. But the cube function will be calling another function called a square function. So let me add another statement inside cube function here, which is a square function, square of, okay. So for example, I'm just passing here square of n. Okay. So now let me call this function called cube of x. Okay. So by writing like this, cube of n. Okay. Now when I execute this particular program, it will ask you to enter a value. In that case, if I enter value of n as 10, then it is going to print 100 and then 1000. So why this is going to happen? So clearly you can see first you're passing value of n. Okay. So n value will be how much? 10. Okay. Because you're giving value of n as 10. Now that n value will be basically 10 here. So now this 10 will be passed into a variable called x. Okay. And immediately this is going to compute c is equal to x into x into x, which is 1000. But within this cube function, we have defined another function called square function. Okay. So in this square function, you can see this is the code. These two lines are the code which are under square function. Okay. So once you come out of this square function, basically in the cube function, we are calling a function name called square with parameter called n. So what is the value of n here? N value is 10 basically. So now this 10 value is copied into variable x. Okay. And x value will become 10. 10 into 10 equal to 100. So s value will contain 100 and this s value will be printed. Okay. So after this square of n, now this is asking you to print value of c. Value of c is already computed as x into x into x. So which is 10 into 10 into 10, which is nothing but 1000. So 1000 will be inside a variable called c. Now you're going to print value of c, which is 1000. So 1000 gets displayed here. Okay. So this is how this particular program is going to produce the results. Now, if you observe, this is a modified implementation of the previous code, where within the cube function, I have defined another function called a square function. Okay. I'm not going to print any value that is produced by this square function. So this square function is also taking the same parameter that is passed to cube function. Okay. And x into x is performed and the corresponding result is basically placed in a variable called s, and then we are returning that result yes back to the calling function. So in that case you can see this is square function. You can see here expand. Okay. Collapse here. So within this cube function, what we are calling here, so in the cube function, we have defined a square function and we are calling this a square function. And calling this square function is going to return you a value, and that value must be multiplied with x. Clear? So after performing this operation, the result is stored inside a variable called c, and now we are printing that particular result c. Okay, just like this. So if you observe this, taking a value of n, let us suppose I'm taking value of n as 4. Okay. Then what happens is immediately cube function is called by passing a parameter called 4. Okay. So now this x value will also become 4. And this x value will also become 4. Okay. Basically, but this will not be executed immediately until you call this square function. It won't be executed. So inside the cube function, it is now calling square of n. Okay. So we know that value of n, okay, is already 4, and now you can see this function gets expanded and value of n is copied into variable x. Okay. And this x value is clearly 4 now. So 4 into 4 value is 16, that is stored inside a variable called s. And now this is going to return value of 16 back to the calling function, and this is the statement containing a function call. So 16 value will be replaced. Okay. So square of n will be replaced by 16 here, and 16 into x, we know a value of x is 4. So 16 into 4 will be 64, then that gets copied into variable called c. Now we are going to print value of C, which is 64. So let's execute this nested function here. So I'm giving a value as 4 and I'm getting a result as 64, just what we have seen now. Clear? So this is how the nested functions are going to work in Python programming.
Hello guys, so in this video I'll be explaining about lambda functions. Okay, so let's see what is meant by lambda function. Okay, so these lambda functions will have only a single line, only a single line. Okay, so the functionality of lambda function, or we can say this feature, is basically taken from Lisp programming. So Lisp programmers have basically included this concept of lambda function into Python. So coming to its corresponding syntax of the lambda function here, syntax, we have to write lambda, saying that this is a lambda function, and specify its corresponding arguments followed by expression. Okay, so let me tell you an example for this lambda function. Okay, so just consider sum is equal to, okay, now I'm making use of this lambda function, lambda, and what are the arguments of this lambda function? They are x comma y colon x plus y. Okay, so now we need to print sum is equal to, okay, so we need to pass sum of 3 comma 5. Okay, so in this code what happens is, exactly you can see here, sum is basically defined with the help of lambda function, and it has got 2 arguments, and the corresponding expression to be evaluated is x plus 5. Okay, so this concept is basically similar to defining a function like this. Okay, so this is as simple as defining a function like sum, and its arguments are x comma y, and this is going to return x plus y. Okay, so this is the overall meaning of writing lambda, okay, x comma y colon x plus y, and we are naming it as sum function. Okay, this is the corresponding meaning. Clear? So sum function will be taking the parameters or arguments x comma y, and the expression to be returned is x plus y. That is what this sum function is going to return, right? Okay, so just like this. And you need to remember that lambda functions will not have any name. Okay, and this lambda function can take any number of arguments. Okay, but it is going to return just one value. Okay, and it will be in the form of an expression like this. So let me consider an example. Okay, so tell me the output for this particular code. how much this is going to return here? So this is going to return sum is equal to 8. Why? Because so I told you already this is similar to this one, and 3 comma 5, you can see value of 3 is basically passed into variable x, and value of y is becoming 5. Now this is going to return 3 plus 5 is equal to 8. Okay, so this value will be returned here, and hence it is going to display sum equal to 8 like this. So next one, in this video we'll see how we can pass lambda function as an argument to a function. Okay, so lambda function as an argument to a function. Okay, so now I'll consider this example here. So where I'm going to use twice to double the value of x and thrice to triple the value of x. So first of all, let me define a function first. Define function fun with parameters f comma n. Okay, and here I'm going to print f of n. Okay, where this f of n is basically, you will see what will be printed after writing this code. So twice is making use of lambda function, lambda x, and you can see twice is written as x into 2. Next one is thrice. Similarly, lambda x is written as x into 3. So now I'm going to call this function here. Okay, function fun. Okay, and I'm passing parameters like this: twice, comma 4, and similarly I'm calling function fun and passing thrice, comma 3. Okay, so as the concept suggests, we are passing lambda function as an argument to a function. So this is function called fun, and I'm passing lambda function twice as an argument to this function. And here fun is the name of the function, and I'm passing thrice as an argument to the function. Okay, where this twice and thrice are said to be lambda functions. So defined like this: when you pass x, it will become x into 2 for twice function, which is lambda function. And similarly for thrice, if you are passing an argument or value x, it will become x into 3, and this is going to return. So this is a function that we have defined here, right? Okay, and the moment this function is called like this, function fun is called, so that moment when you are passing function fun, okay, so f comma n here, so f is the name of the function, which is a lambda function called twice, and n value will be how much? 4 here. Okay, so this must be returning like this: print f of n. So in this case it is nothing but print twice of 4. Okay, so according to the lambda function, if you are passing value of x as 4, then the corresponding expression to be returned is 4 into 2, okay, which is nothing but 8. So value of 8 will be returned here, and that is getting printed. So immediately you can see the output that is displayed here will be 8. And similarly, when you are calling one more time, but this time you're passing function, lambda function called thrice to this particular function. So in this case, the execution of this statement will be like this. It is going to print thrice of 3. Okay. So clearly value of x will become 3. And you can see 3 into 3, value will be 9. Yes or no? So this value will be returned back to the calling function, and this is going to print value of 9 as the output. Clear? So this is the corresponding output for this particular code. Okay. So similarly, we'll consider an example, another example here, for illustrating this concept of lambda function. So here I'm trying to use lambda function in order to find the sum of first 10 natural numbers. Okay, so this is basically a program that uses a lambda function, in order to find sum of first 10 natural numbers. Okay, so in this case we can write code very easily here. So consider x equal to, and you can see I'm writing a lambda function here, lambda function, and the corresponding code for this lambda function is sum of, I'm making use of range of 10 numbers, right? So 1 to 11 I'll consider here, 1 to 11. Now I'm writing a print statement just like this, print of x. Okay, so this is basically invoking the lambda expression. Okay, so that is not having any arguments here. I'm not passing any arguments, but it is going to return a value here. Okay, so what happens is simply we are calling this function x, and this is clearly a lambda function performing some operation on the range of numbers. Okay, so this is similar to performing sum of range of 1 to 11, means we have a list of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and again performing some operation on these numbers will be actually producing a result, okay, by performing 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. So this corresponding result, which is nothing but 55, and that will be returned to this call, and it is going to display the output as 55. Okay, so this is how it is going to display the output. Okay, next, so we'll consider another example for lambda function. So in this case, I'm going to write a function which is going to find smallest of the two given numbers. Okay, and I'm calling this with the help of lambda function. Okay, so let me define a function here. Define. So name of the function is a small. Okay, and the parameters of this function are a and b, or we can say these are the arguments. Okay, so within this function, okay, after indentation, I'm making use of if statement, if else statement, basically a less than b. Okay, so if value of a is less than b, we can say this is going to return a. Okay, and in the else case, this is going to return b. Okay, so this is the function definition. This is the function definition, right? So now I'm making use of lambda function in order to find the sum and difference. There are two functions that I'm going to implement here. Both are lambda functions. So how we can perform sum operation using lambda function if the arguments are x and y? It is simply producing x plus y. X plus y. Now similarly, if I'm going to identify the difference, so again making use of this lambda function here. Okay, so again I'm going to use this x comma y. The corresponding result will be x minus y, which is an expression to be performed. Okay, so now I'm going to pass this lambda functions as the arguments to the regular function. Okay, this is a regular function, that is a function called small, right? Okay, so this concept is basically passing lambda functions as arguments to the, you can say, regular function that we use in Python. Okay, so now I'm going to write here a print statement. So according to this print statement, you can write like this: smaller of two numbers. Okay, so here I'm passing both these lambda functions as argument to this small function. So first argument is some lambda function by passing arguments like -3, -2, and the second argument is difference, which is again a lambda function here. Okay, and you can close this print statement. So what is the output that is going to be produced here? Okay. So in order to identify the output produced by this code, we'll just see what is the working of this code. Okay. So first, we are calling small function, that is fine, but this has to return a value, because small function can be called with parameters or arguments, but here the arguments are again depending on the lambda function. Okay, so -3 -2, you can see, so these are calling this sum function, okay, which is basically a lambda function, and immediately x value will become -3 here and y value will become -2. Okay, these are the two values that are passed to sum. So x plus y means -3 plus -2. This value will become -5. Okay. So next, similarly, we are calling another function called diff function and passing the parameters like -1 and 2. So this is value of x and this is value of y. So here you can see this is -1 and this is 2. Okay. And what will be the result? The corresponding expression to be evaluated is -1 -2, result will be -3. So -5 will be passed here and -3 will be passed here. So this function call will become like this: small of -5 comma -3. So now we are basically calling this small function with the parameters -5 and -3. So a will be holding value of -5 and b will be holding value of -3. Now look at this if statement: -5 less than -3, condition becomes true. Okay, and this is going to return value of a. So what is value of a here? -5. So this is going to return -5 as the output. Okay, because this entire function call gets result as -5. So we can say the entire output that is going to be printed here is this particular statement will be printed: smaller of two numbers, okay, is equal to -5. Okay, if you want, I'll write here clearly: smaller of two numbers, okay, is clearly -5. This is the output obtained. Okay, so this is all about lambda functions.